Hi everyone, this is Lynn Gibbs with Tug Hill Tomorrow Land Trust. We're here on Virtual Birding Wednesday for August. If you're joining me today, just say hi in the comments or add a heart or some kind of emoji or whatever, and then I will know who you are. Welcome. I'm going to wait just a couple of minutes to see if more people join us. I'm showing this view of a male bluebird feeding a fledgling because we're going to be talking about baby birds today. This time of year, at the end of the breeding season, you may have birds that have 3 broods in a year if the resources are good. You may have late breeders like goldfinches who breed later in the year and are having young hatch and start to emerge from their nests right now. So this is a common sight that you'll see. You may see baby birds on a branch or in bushes or on the ground with their mouth open, making some squeaking sounds and fluttering their feathers, their wings back and forth really, really fast to try and beg food from their parent. And you may or may not see the parent close by and feeding their young. They're trying to teach their young to get their own food and start to learn to fly. But they're in the vicinity, making sure that their young are doing well. And we've been having some calls lately about people finding baby birds and wondering what to do. So I thought I'd talk about that today. So this situation is happening. Baby birds can be in a couple of different stages in their lives when they either fall from a nest accidentally or fall from the nest because a predator was trying to get to the birds, or they're hopping out of a nest on purpose because they're old enough to fledge. This baby bird that we're seeing right here appears to be a baby robin, I believe, possibly baby bluebird. And this bird has feathers. Can you see? It has feathers all over its body. And even though it's kind of crunching down into this person's hand, if it were on the ground, it would likely be able to lift its head, move its wings, maybe hop a little bit. At this stage, this is a fledgling. It has those flight feathers. And for about a week after the fledglings come out of the nest, they're on the ground. They're not quite ready to fly yet. So when they're on the ground, they are being looked after by their parents. But they're really vulnerable to animals like cats and other predators. So the parents are around, but they're not right next to the bird usually. They've got a few different birds to take care of at a time. So this fledgling could maybe lift its head or hop. That gives you an idea that it's starting to be old enough to be out of the nest and on its own in a little bit. It takes about a week for them to really get their bearings and start to be able to use their flight feathers and fly. So they are vulnerable on the ground. If you find a fledgling like this, the best thing is just leave it alone. The best thing is to leave it where it is. The parents know where it is and they're watching and they're taking care of it. If you feel like you have found a fledgling that might be injured or is obviously injured in some way, you would want to call a certified wildlife rehabilitation technician, a rehabber. And the New York State DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, has a page on their site with a list of certified rehabbers, and you could find them and call them, or you could call a vet and they could direct you to where to go. But these guys generally, unless they're obviously injured or obviously damaged in some way, just leave them alone. They'll find their way. The parents will look out for them. You might pick it up and put it in a sheltered place if you feel like it's in harm's way from a neighbor's cat or a raccoon or something around. You could put it in a shallow box so the parent can still reach it, but it's not quite as obviously visible to ground animals. Those are two things you could do. But then just back away and just from a distance, just, keep your eye on it. Make sure the parents are around. Now this next bird is pretty ugly looking. That is not a fledgling. It'll be a nestling. These birds that do not have feathers or have very few feathers, kind of pinky looking, and they can't really hold themselves up. They don't have the strength yet to get their heads up for very long, and they're not able to hop very well, if at all. These are birds that you need to try and locate the nest that they fell out of and put them back in their nest. These are very vulnerable to predation and also to temperature changes in weather, and they're best in their nest. If you find them on the ground and you can't find their nest, you don't know where they came from, and you feel like they're vulnerable, you can pick them up and place them under a bush, like at the base of a bush, so they have some shelter from weather, and back off and then watch and make sure that parents are taking care of the bird. Or you could make a little, you could even in those spots even make a little nest for them from some twigs or debris on the ground and give them a little bit more insulation and put them in there. But again, their parents also will look after them even when they're this small. They're just really vulnerable to animals on the ground. So if you have pets, you want to keep your pets away from them. Make sure the parents are helping. And if you can, find the nest they came from, put them back in the nest. The parents will not abandon them. And again, if you find one that is obviously injured, then you want to call your vet or consult the list on the DEC website and call a rehabber. I will put that link in the comments for this video so that you'll have that available to you. Has anybody out there been finding any baby birds? Yep, there's my dog speaking up. Now you also may be experiencing some lulls at your bird feeder. Birds at this time of year are starting to group up a little bit more and not stay in pairs because they're over breeding season, starting to get past that. And they also are a little bit vulnerable during this time because the last couple of months of summer, August and early September, are times when birds are replacing their feathers because they've been working them hard all summer, taking care of youngsters, flying in and out of bushes or nest boxes, flying a lot to gather food for their youngins. So their feathers get pretty beat up over the summer. Most birds only molt one time a year. Goldfinches are an exception. And so they start to molt toward the end of the summer, and there's about a month, about three weeks or so during this time of year when most songbirds are replacing their feathers. So they might lose one feather at a time and replace it, or they might have a whole bunch of feathers fall out and then they have to replace all of them. And during that time, they're not as nimble at flying, and they don't want to bring as much attention to themselves. So they tend to be a little bit quieter and stick to more sheltered places a little bit. So you may or may not see less frequency of visits at your bird feeder during this time right before migration. And again, you may have noticed those birds starting to flock up rather than stay in pairs. So they're starting to, chickadees and cardinals and cedar waxwings, those birds are starting to group up for migration. So you may see that happening too. Does anybody have any questions, or have you seen any cool birds lately? Let me know in the comments. The summer has been pretty common birding for me. I've seen a lot of kestrels over the farm fields. I've seen a lot of our basic birds. Last week I was in the Adirondacks kayaking with some kids on a lake, and we got to see a common loon family with one adolescent and the two parents, which was really, really fun. And we got to see a bald eagle, so that was exciting as well. So far, no comments, no questions. Okay, so I just wanted to give you that summary for this time of year for birding. And again, if you watch the replay, you can put questions in there. I will get a notification and I will get back to you as soon as I can. You can always send Tug Hill Tomorrow a message through Messenger on Facebook, or email us or call us, and we'll be glad to help you with whatever you're looking for. Okay, so I'm gonna sign off because that's all I have. If nobody has any questions or anything they want to contribute. All right, well, you guys have a happy rest of your Wednesday, and we will see you next month in September for our virtual birding lives for that month. Happy birding!